Hey everybody, it's Medusa here. In this video, we're going to be going over how Rykard and Eiglay, the Serpant-God, actually merged together, and some lore and a little bit of explanation between the characters, and how he finally merged into what everybody loves and knows as the best Elden Ring boss ever. Now, before we get started, I really do appreciate all the new viewers and subscribers to the channel. I really do appreciate it, as I am trying to make this a full-time career. I love all the extra views that I'm getting on my new videos, and I really can't wait to get monetized and continue to make this content for you guys full-time. If you want any specific content or anything to be shown or made a video on, any lore, any media in particular, like the Johnny Depp trial, comment on my videos down below, and yeah, ring that bell notification so that way you know every single time I post, every single time I go live, and we'll hang out, have great chats, and just have a great old time. But again, enough of wasting your time. 98% of you aren't subscribed that view my channel, so if you would please hit that subscribe button. It's only a second out of your time, but it'll make my world. So I appreciate you guys coming in and supporting the channel. Again, if you like what you see, thanks for tuning in. Alright, back to the story. Deuces. Now, the story of Volcano Manor's Lord Rykard in Elden Ring, and how he became the infamous god-devouring serpent, is one of ambition and corruption. His blasphemous discovery of a god led to his ultimate grim transformation. Now let's start from the beginning. Lord Rykard began life as someone who fought for what he thought was right, rejecting the Golden Order of Elden Ring and the oppressive dogma that he felt it imposed. Like many characters in Elden Ring, however, his story became a tragedy as his pursuit of power and freedom only led to corruption and persecution. Long before the events of Elden Ring and the establishment of the Golden Order, various insulated religious groups littered the lands between. Each worshipped their own gods, and one of those groups worshipped Eiglay, the immortal Serpant-God. Eiglay demanded blood sacrifices in order to nourish itself and increase its power, so its followers often found themselves in conflicts with other religious groups, such as those that follow the Deathrite birds that we all know and hate in Elden Ring. Now, if you've played Elden Ring enough, you'll come to find that players who get the sacrificial axe in Elden Ring will find that its effects mirror that of the Serpent God's curved sword. Based on item descriptions, they also propose that prior to the Erd Tree and the arrival of the Elden Beast in Marika, the two zealous groups were antagonistic towards one another and likely came into conflict. It's unclear how or when, but the followers of the Serpent God Eiglay eventually vanished, and Eiglay was left to rot inside Mount Gelmir. That was, until Lord Rykard discovered him, of course. Now, as you play through Elden Ring and finally reach Volcano Manor, you'll come to realize that Lord Rykard, later known as Praetor Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, is the son of Radagon and Queen Rennala, and is the eldest brother of General Verdun and Lunar Princess Ranni. When they were still young, the first Elden Lord Godfrey was robbed of his grace, and Radagon left Rennala to become the second Elden Lord. With Radagon now the consort of Elden Ring's Queen Marika, the children were brought with him, and thanks to Marika, became demigods. Now, despite the power gifted to them by Queen Marika, Rykard and Ranni grew to resent the Greater Will and its Golden Order. Rykard dealt with this resentment by traveling the world, and his travels led him straight to the base of Mount Gelmir. As he explored the volcano, he discovered ancient hexes and things left behind by the Serpent God's religious followers who have long been forgotten. Being skilled in sorcery, Rykard took these hexes and began developing his own spells and sorcery using Mount Gelmir's magma. As he continued exploring the volcano's inner chambers, Rykard finally discovered the weakened body of Eiglay. Now, despite being one of Atlas Plateau's hardest optional bosses in Elden Ring, Rykard discovered a much weaker form of the Serpent God. Despite this, Rykard is attracted to dignity and ambition rather than stature or power. Such in the case with his wife Tanith that you also meet with her Night Guardian in Volcano Manor. It's because of this that Eiglay is able to charm Rykard enough to make him settle on Mount Gelmir and begin constructing the Volcano Manor. Now, during its construction, Rykard became increasingly devoted to the Serpent God and turned much of his manor into a shrine in order to show his unwavering devotion. It's at this time that Ronnie comes to him for help. Now determined to fight the Greater Will and destroy the Golden Order, Ronnie pleads and asks Rykard for help. Ronnie gathered a group of like-minded people to steal a shard of the Rune of Death from Marika's half-brother Malekith and use the shard to forge god-killing weapons. It's unclear what part Rykard played, but in the end, he was gifted with one of Elden Ring's black knife daggers that was forged from the Rune of Death. With this event, the Elden Ring was shattered in two, and Rykard became a loyal disciple of Eiglay, the Serpant-God. After the Night of Black Knives, Rykard devoted himself to Eiglay and rebuilding its forgotten religion. Due to his ideology, Rykard had amassed a large following, enough to aid in the construction of Volcano Manor, but after the fall of the Golden Order, he didn't have the power or the charisma or accolades to maintain that following. In order to gain and hold onto power, he and his loyal followers began using the less devoted as ritual sacrifices to Eiglay, who in turn was increasing in power as he received more blood. Rykard eventually became an inquisition in which Volcano Manor began hunting Elden Ring's very tarnished and Golden Order sympathizers to use for sacrifice. Now, the magnitude of this inquisition was so vast that Volcano Manor actually ran out of space for prisoners and corpses, including those that are displayed throughout Mount Gelmir on pikes and hanging from poles. Even worse, Eiglay was never satisfied for more blood and kept demanding more and more sacrifices. In the end, Eiglay promised Rykard great power and immortality if the latter offered himself to the Serpant-God. Having reached the peak of his devotion, Rykard agreed, and Eiglay consumed his body as well as his shard of the Rune of Death. With this last act, the two became merged, and Rykard's face manifested itself on Egglay's neck, as we all clearly see in our epic battle against Rykard and Eiglay. Now, as Rykard sacrificed himself to Eiglay through his pure undoubt and devotion, many of those that once served Rykard turned against him and wondered how they could defeat Elden Ring's Lord of Blasphemy. They would eventually find an ancient blade that was made specifically to kill the Serpant-God. However, none were able to kill him, as Rykard had become way too powerful. Thankfully, a chosen tarnished, you and yourself alike, would one day arrive and defeat both Eiglay and Rykard with this great ancient blade, at least for now. Since Rykard was imbued with the immortality of the ancient Serpant-God, as well as the power of the Death Rune, he did not truly die. His head currently resides and rests in his chamber, where his body is slowly reforming, and Tanith sits, feasting on his innards in hopes that he will live on through her. In the end, Rykard's wish for the end of Elden Ring's Golden Order led him to corruption and into the home of an ancient bloodthirsty god. Egglay's influence slowly drove Rykard to sadism in order to reach his ambitions no matter the cost, even if it meant his own body and soul would be lost in the process. Elden Ring is full of tragedy and darkness, and Rykard's story is one of the most subtle yet devastating examples of this.